Chapter 77. Titan. The eyes of Mo Harang of the demon fire hall trembled. The faint form of chains enveloping her body looked like an illusion, but when she tried to move, they tightened further and restrained her. She tried to draw up her internal energy, but Mach Jangan approached her and said, "The price for seeing what you wanted is quite steep, but are you okay with that?" A smiling face, but that smile was truly filled with malice. There was no killing intent, so how could he smile like that? In an instant, she recalled a story she had heard before. Among thousands and tens of thousands, there are those born with a murderous nature. What is that? It's a disposition that finds joy, pleasure, and the reason for existence in death and destruction. Isn't that dangerous? It is dangerous, but if they can be properly tamed, they can be said to be the best material for assassins. The best? Yes, those with a murderous nature have no hesitation in killing someone. That's why they don't get swayed emotionally. So that can become a talent. That was still when the Demon Fire Hall was called one of the 4 major assassin groups. She thought that perhaps Mach Jangan might be the murderous nature her father had spoken of back then. If that was the case, she might have touched on something dangerous. But that didn't matter. Mo Harang looked straight into Mach Jangan's eyes and said, "I will pay any price. Any price. If it means uncovering a secret, I'm prepared for it." Prepared. But there's only one life, so can there be any price? Mach Jangan still had a smiling face, but the words coming out were extremely brutal. "Master, give me this human's body." The green spirit, Gyu Soha, said with a greedy gaze. Hearing this voice, Mo Harang flinched in surprise and looked at Gyu Soha. At this, Gyu Soha tilted her head and muttered, "Human, you can hear my voice too? Oh." At those words, the blue spirit also showed interest. That's because although she deliberately revealed her appearance, she didn't make her voice audible. But being able to hear this meant, it seems the spiritual eye has opened. Spiritual eye? Yes. Unlike you, who has opened the demon eye to see the inner essence, it seems you have gained the eye to see souls at the crossroads of life and death. The blue spirit called it the spiritual eye. Perhaps unable to hear her voice, Mo Harang couldn't take her eyes off Gyu Soha. Mo Harang cautiously parted her lips. "Are you really a ghost? What, do I look like a mere human to you?" Gyu Soha raised the corners of his mouth. The fear of living humans was no different from nourishment for vengeful spirits. However, Mo Harang showed a different emotion than fear. It seemed elevated somehow. It was close to the emotion felt when seeing something one had been wanting to find. At this, Mach Jangan said to her, "You're showing an interesting reaction. Is seeing the dead your wish or something?" No, that's not it." Mo Harang's voice trembled. She turned her head to look at Mach Jangan, and then, as if making a resolution, she spoke with force in her neck. "I will pay any price you want, even if it means my life." At her words, the interest in Mach Jangan's eyes faded away. Having seen countless deaths, he had come to be able to distinguish to some extent between those who were truly prepared for death and those who weren't, and she was closer to the former. She was prepared to stake her life if necessary. To such Mach Jangan, she continued, "But help me in return." Help you, you say?" Mach Jangan muttered as if annoyed. And then, bringing his finger to her throat, he said, "Why should I do that? It's just a bother. Press." His finger pressed into where her Adam's apple was. At this, she spoke with unwavering eyes. "Body. That ghost said it wants a body, right? If you grant my request, I'll give you this body as much as you want. It seems like you're trying to make a deal, but even now, I can take your body without having to do that." At Mach Jangan's words, Mo Harang's eyes sharpened. At that moment, a sharp energy spread from her body. Clang, clang. Then, the chains created by Gyu Soha's spiritual power were cut off. At some point, sharp daggers were held in both of Mo Harang's hands. The daggers were imbued with flickering killing energy, which was honed much sharper than that of Yeom Jie of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave. "Step back. the blue spirit warned. At this, Mach Jangan stepped back about half a step and slightly shook his head to the side. At that moment, several trajectories drew lines in front of his eyes and narrowly grazed past Mach Jangan. If he had been a little late, a part of his body, including his chin, would have been cut off. No, it was slightly cut. Trickle. A drop of blood flowed down where the trajectory had passed. Thread. It was much thinner than thread but had elasticity. This thread-like thing tied behind the hilt of the dagger embedded in the floor surrounded the area to prevent movement. Mo Harang spoke in a chilling voice. "Don't underestimate me too much." Killing intent was emanating from her voice. At this, Mach Jangan smirked and said, "You had a hidden trick up your sleeve." While that was happening, the blue spirit's voice was heard. "I thought I had seen that dagger technique somewhere before, but she has inherited the lineage of the Killing King." The lineage of the Killing King? As soon as Mach Jangan's question ended, a glint appeared in Mo Harang's eyes. She spoke in a tone of incomprehension. "What are you?" Mo Harang was genuinely amazed. She never thought the words lineage of the Killing King would come out of Mach Jangan's mouth. It would be stranger not to think of the Killing King after seeing the linked kill and the flash shadow flying dagger technique. Mach Jangan directly repeated those words of the blue spirit. It would be stranger not to think of the Killing King after seeing the linked kill and the flash shadow flying dagger technique. At those words, Mo Harang's eyes widened. Many people knew about the linked kill, so there were few who didn't know about it. However, the flash shadow flying dagger technique was different. This was a secret technique that only the sect leader of the Demon Fire Hall could learn. It was literally a secret technique, and since it was not used unless the opponent had to be killed or was too difficult to handle, it was hardly known. And the Killing King is the predecessor of our sect. It's a story passed down only orally within our sect, known only to the sect leader and the successors. So how does he know that? It was in that moment of her confusion. Mach Jangan strongly stomped on the floor. Then the floorboard was pressed down, and the part where the dagger was embedded rose upward. At the same time, the thin threads tightly surrounding the area loosened. Swish! In this instant, Mach Jangan flew toward her in one breath and grabbed her neck. Of course, Mo Harang didn't just stand still either. The moment Mach Jangan charged, she immediately came to her senses and stabbed the dagger toward Mach Jangan's heart, as she had practiced thousands and tens of thousands of times. No, to be precise, only the tip of the dagger slightly penetrated. Fast. Grab. If Mach Jangan hadn't grabbed her wrist with his left hand, it would have penetrated even deeper. That's how fast her movements were, making it difficult to respond even when seen with the eyes. It was clear that Mo Harang was much stronger than Yom Jie of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave. Crack. Tremble. As Mach Jangan applied more strength to his hand, she frowned at the pain that felt like her wrist would break. Even in the midst of that, seeing her not let out a single moan, Mach Jangan chuckled. "You're strong. When did you put this around my neck?" Slide. A silver thread was somehow wrapped around Mach Jangan's neck. The dagger that had been embedded in the floor and bounced upward was hanging from the ceiling, and if Mo Harang pulled her hand, his neck would have been tightened. "Why aren't you pulling it? You're not squeezing my neck, either." Just as she said, Mach Jangan was gripping Mo Harang's neck with his right hand but wasn't applying strength. That's why she hadn't pulled the thread either. Honestly speaking, if she pulled this, Mach Jangan's neck would be cut off, so she had refrained from doing so. Beyond this point, it was truly the territory of killing each other. If I kill him, it's a violation of the restriction in this gateway. And she still had something she wanted from Mach Jangan. That's why she couldn't kill him. Swish! At that moment, Mach Jangan released his hand from the neck he was holding and lightly touched her thread with his finger. In that instant, the taut thread soon became limp. Mo Harang's eyes widened. She was definitely sending true energy through the thread, but as if it had dispersed, the thread no longer obeyed her. What is this? She couldn't understand. While she was doing that, Mach Jangan said, "You seem quite useful." "What? I was going to give you to Soha as a body, but it doesn't seem bad to just use you myself." "What are you talking about now?" You said you would pay any price for what you want, right? At Mach Jangan's words, Mo Harang momentarily hesitated. She had definitely agreed to that, but perhaps because of Mach Jangan's suddenly changed attitude, she found herself hesitating for a moment. But then, Mach Jangan suddenly grabbed her collar and pulled her. Ah! Crack! And then, he forcibly moved her wrist that had stabbed the dagger and twisted it in the direction he was in. She wanted to draw up her energy to block this, but the true energy she sent to her wrist kept dispersing, draining her strength, and she couldn't do anything about it. Crack! At some point, the dagger she was holding was pointed toward her face. Was he really trying to kill her? While that was happening, something fell and wet her lips. It was none other than a drop of blood. Drip, drip. Mach Jangan's blood, which had been on the tip of the blade, was about to fall into her mouth. When she tried to close her mouth, Mach Jangan said, "Open it." What was he talking about? She couldn't understand why he was doing this. However, judging that he wasn't trying to kill her, she soon opened her mouth without questioning it. Then, the drop of blood that had been on the tip of the dagger fell into her mouth. Swallow it. She did as she was told. The moment she swallowed the drop of blood that had entered her mouth, her chest became extremely hot. A burning pain was engulfing her body, and it was so agonizing that she forcibly shook off the hand Mach Jangan was holding and immediately tried to sit cross-legged. Poison. It's poison. A pain that twisted her internal organs. She was convinced that this was poison. As a descendant of the Demon Fire Hall, known as one of the 4 major assassin groups, she was somewhat well-versed in poisons and had even ingested some deadly poisons to build up resistance to them. However, Mach Jangan's blood was incomparable to that. How can blood have such poison? The poison was too strong, as if numerous poisons had been concentrated. The word deadly poison was insufficient. If I don't circulate energy quickly, smack! As she tried to sit cross-legged, Mach Jangan kicked her stomach with his foot. Ugh! The pain of her internal organs twisting was already agonizing, and being kicked in the abdomen made her so distressed that she felt like killing Mach Jangan right away. You! Smack! At that moment, Mach Jangan pressed down on her shoulder near the collarbone with his foot and said, "You said you would pay any price. Then, from this moment on, I'd like you to become a faithful dog. You don't have to go this far." No, that won't do. I never trust people. Mo Harang's eyes trembled. She felt like she had made a huge mistake. This person was more twisted than she had imagined. Couldn't be defined as a murderous nature or whatever. It was truly evil itself. The boys who had given up even circulating energy and resting in order to gather teammates and were going around the rooms. They couldn't hide their surprise when they saw a group walking down the corridor. Oh, is this for real? What? No way. They doubted their own eyes. The two, a man and a woman, followed behind Mach Jangan on both sides. They were the descendants of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave and Demon Fire Hall, who were called the most promising in this gateway trial of Corpse Blood Valley. Now that the restriction on internal energy was lifted, everyone had expected that each and every one of them would naturally become the team leader and lead others. But what was this? Could it be that those 2 team leader-level individuals had joined under that guy? Chapter 78. Swoosh! A faint haze rose along with sweat from the muscles of Mach Yuchion's bare upper body. As energy circulated through his exhausted muscles and internal organs from the long-overdue energy circulation and breath refinement, the fatigue gradually subsided. Now that the restriction was lifted, he realized even more the preciousness of internal energy. I think I'll live. The difference between circulating energy and not was stark. Simply sleeping could alleviate the tiredness, but by circulating energy, the accumulated fatigue throughout the body was also released. Sting! Sting! As he circulated energy, his fingers started to ache. After doing a few small revolutions, he opened his eyes and saw his messed-up hands. Broken nails and bruises covered his fingers, back of the hands and palms, with not a single spot unscathed. Seeing this, Mach Yuchion had a strange thought. Although he wasn't very old, Had he ever worked this hard to fiercely survive since he was born? No. It was the first time. It was his first real battle and his first time killing someone. Not long ago, all he did was train alone in the martial arts hall, sweating. But now, it felt like he had fallen into an abyss in an instant. Clench! Mach Jangan clenched his hands full of wounds. No matter what, he would somehow survive this place. The only one he could trust was himself. Mach Jangan. He decided not to have any more false hopes about that guy. He didn't know what made that guy change so much, but that guy didn't care about him, and he had no reason to either. The fact that they were half-brothers was meaningless. Survival of the fittest. This was such a place. He still couldn't understand why he, who had entered as a hostage, had to struggle and risk his life like this against them. But to survive, he had to become stronger. The world is vast. Once the energy point was unblocked, he believed there would be no one among the boys who could defeat him. However, he couldn't hide his inner surprise at the energy stimulating his senses here and there. He thought that among his peers, besides himself, only the later generation disciples from major sects would have reached the peak realm. But that was a misconception. Tap! Mach Jangan got up from his seat. Then, glancing at Masang, who was circulating energy on the bed, he quietly assumed the basic stance of the Yun Mach sword manner. The human psyche was truly peculiar. Even in this extreme situation where one could die at any moment, a strong competitive spirit arose instead. Seeing this, he thought that he might be a martial artist to the bone. I need to become stronger. To do that, training was the only answer. Anyway, even if he gathered internal energy through energy circulation and breath refinement for a day or two, it wouldn't have a significant impact. It was enough to just recover his body. The rest of the time, it was important to gain insight through training. Pack. Mach Jangan slowly unfolded the basic stances of the Yun Mach sword manner. This slow-paced martial arts practice, less than half the original speed, was one of the training methods called flying consecutive kick technique, aimed at improving the precision of the stances. It was to train as much as possible without disrupting Masang's energy circulation, as they were sharing the same room. Papak. Even with slow movements, sounds spread from where the fists landed. Mach Jangan had trained in the flying consecutive kick technique method for a long time, so he could fully exert strength even when slowly unfolding the stances. It was at that moment when he was concentrating on training. I thought it might be, but it really was the Yun Mach sword manner. Startled by this voice, Mach Jangan stopped and turned his head. The owner of the voice was Masang, the boy with whom he had shared life and death from the beginning to the end of the second gateway. Although they clashed briefly at the end, they understood each other's feelings, so they decided not to blame each other and share a room. Although he was from the evil faction, he was a guy with loyalty and seemed decent, so he was a friend Mach Jangan felt somewhat close to. However, how do you know that? How I know isn't important. Why is someone from the righteous faction in Corpse Blood Valley? Teach that's. Mach Jangan was momentarily at a loss for words. No matter the reason, him being here was no different from a disgrace as a member of the righteous faction. That's why he couldn't speak. To him, Masang said, "Did the Yun Mach sword manner betray the righteous faction? What are you talking about?" In an instant, Mach Jangan raised his voice as if he was upset. He might not know other things, but he had not yet lost his pride as a member of the righteous faction. It was because the manor master, his father, had also chosen to seal the sect not to surrender but to save everyone. The Yun Mach sword manner is forever a part of the righteous faction. At Mach Jangan's words, Masang scoffed and said as if it was ridiculous, "Don't say such nonsense. A guy who has come all the way to Corpse Blood Valley says he hasn't betrayed the righteous faction? Aren't you here to become a direct disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society's executives in the end?" What? At Masang's words, Mach Jangan's eyes trembled. What is this about? Becoming a direct disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society's executives? He couldn't understand. At Mach Jangan's reaction of incomprehension, Masang's eyes narrowed. What? Don't tell me you didn't know. At that question, Mach Jangan had a perplexed expression for a while before opening his mouth. I don't know. I was just dragged here without any notice and didn't know anything. Really? You didn't know anything? Yeah. At these words, Ma Sang spoke with a suspicious look. That's absurd. To enter Corpse Blood Valley without knowing anything. I told you it's true. Would you believe it if you were me? What the hell is this place? Why is everyone risking their lives and causing this chaos? He couldn't understand it from the beginning. Those warriors in red belts who didn't care even as so many of them died. And the boys who risked their lives to carry out the gateways they ordered. Not a single thing was within the realm of understanding. Why are we risking our lives, you ask? Corpse Blood Valley is the shortest path to becoming a direct disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society's executives. Why do you think everyone is risking their lives? If you overcome that risk, you get a chance to be chosen by the 8 executives of the Heaven and Earth Society and become their direct disciple. Even if you don't become one, the more gateways you pass, the more benefits you get to become a team leader or division leader. Do you think opportunities like this come easily? The Heaven and Earth Society. A chance to become a direct disciple of the 8 executives? Mach Jangan's eyes trembled severely. Now he seemed to understand why they were risking their lives to such an extent to carry out the gateways. Becoming a disciple of the 8 executives, known as the top masters of the Heaven and Earth Society that dominated the martial arts world, was an opportunity to rise to a status that could control the martial arts world in the future. For them, it was worth risking their lives. But he was different. Damn it! Mach Jangan bit his lip tightly. Then, all this time, his struggling to survive meant he had been striving to become a direct disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society, which could be called the archenemy of the righteous faction. What the hell am I doing? If that really happened... The Yun Mach Sword Manor would not be sending hostages but sending their children to the Heaven and Earth Society's Talent Nurturing Center. Doing something to survive was poisonous to the Yun Mach Sword Manor. Mach Jangan was genuinely confused. What should he do? Was it a trap that the Heaven and Earth Society had sent him here? It was at that moment when he was dumbfounded. It seems you really didn't come here of your own will. Ma Sang's tone suddenly became quite serious, unlike before. At this, Mach Jangan couldn't hide his bewilderment. How did you come here? At that question, Mach Jangan hesitated. He had learned that his entry into Corpse Blood Valley was no different from a trap, and he thought it was dangerous to say anything to people under the Heaven and Earth Society, who were practically enemies. While he was doing that, Ma Sang poked at the wound again. It is betrayal, isn't it? At those words, Mach Jangan's face flushed with anger. If it weren't for this situation, he would have wanted to slap Ma Sang's face, but he barely held back. Then, he eventually revealed the truth. It's not betrayal. I was just taken as a hostage. Hostage? Yeah. Nonsense. Why would they send a hostage to Corpse Blood Valley? I don't know either. I thought they would just keep me nicely. Like you said, I didn't know Corpse Blood Valley was a place like this. You didn't know? If I knew, I wouldn't have struggled like this. I would have rather tried to escape somehow. Escape? Can you say that to me? I don't know. Right now, I don't even know what I should do. The more I put in effort to survive here, the more likely it is that the Yun Mach Sword Manor will be branded as having betrayed the righteous faction. If that's the case, for the honor and family as a member of the righteous faction, committing suicide might be the right thing to do. Escaping from here was virtually impossible anyway. He clearly realized that as soon as the energy point was unblocked. Monster! The man wearing the demon mask was a master beyond imagination. He couldn't do anything at his level. Suicide? If this was the only answer, it was frightening. He had only lived for 16 years, and it was a scary thing to end his life for the sake of his family. As he became aware of death, Mach Jangan involuntarily shivered. Ma Sang, who had been staring intently at him like that, suddenly got up from the bed, closed the window, checked outside the door, then closed the door and locked it. Then, he approached Mach Jangan and spoke in a whisper with a serious face. You really didn't betray, did you? I told you I didn't. Shoo! Keep your voice down. At his words, Mach Jangan furrowed his brows. Why was he suddenly doing this? While he was puzzled, Ma Sang spoke again in a whisper. I'm sorry for not believing you from the beginning. Even though the Yun Mach Sword Manor has been a renowned righteous faction for a long time, I couldn't help but consider the possibility. What are you talking about now? Listen quietly. I'm a spy sent by the Righteous Alliance. At his words, Mach Jangan's eyes widened. A spy sent by the Righteous Alliance? While he was amazed, Ma Sang continued, Have you heard of Silent Strides? Silent Strides? He had heard of it before. The Righteous Alliance boasted 4 main organizations. One of them was the Silent Strides. It was a secret organization known to exist as the dagger of the Righteous Alliance in the shadows and darkness, not invisible places. As a secret organization, it was literally an organization that should not be known. However, due to a certain incident, the existence of this Silent Strides was revealed. Although the name of the organization became known, the Righteous Alliance strongly denied the existence of this organization, so opinions were divided among people about its existence. But Ma Sang was saying he was from that Silent Strides? The Silent Strides might not be a real organization. It's real. The Righteous Alliance, which pursues righteousness, denied it only because they couldn't acknowledge the existence of an organization in charge of intelligence and assassinations. So the Silent Strides really existed. It was truly surprising. Really? To think the Silent Strides existed? But is it okay to reveal your identity like this? Mach Jangan spoke to him in a respectful manner. Then, Ma Sang shook his head and replied, Just speak normally. Still, it will only raise suspicion. I understand. But is it okay to reveal your identity to me? Actually, in most cases, we're not allowed to reveal our identities even to people from the same righteous faction. But why? The first reason is to identify allies and enemies. Identify. Since the gateways of Corpse Blood Valley often require us to kill each other and everyone around us is an enemy, we need to make you aware that we are allies. Is that why he revealed his identity? But revealing it just for that seemed a bit too casual for a secret organization. Come to think of it, didn't he say we just now? Does that mean there are more people from Silent Strides besides Ma Sang? While Mach Jangan was puzzled, Ma Sang said, The second reason is that, unlike our objective, too many of our infiltrated personnel have died. Infiltrated personnel? As expected, it seemed there were more people from Silent Strides besides Ma Sang. Then there are more besides you? That's right. Originally, about 50 people had infiltrated. 50 people? Mach Jangan's eyes widened. They infiltrated with that many people without getting caught by the Heaven and Earth Society? While he was thinking that, Ma Sang said, But 70% of them were filtered out by the Heaven and Earth Society's information network and were blocked or killed in advance. The number of people who successfully entered Corpse Blood Valley is 15. As a result, it meant that among the approximately 800 challengers of Corpse Blood Valley, 15 were spies from the Righteous Alliance's Silent Strides. Mach Jangan, who didn't know the nature of an intelligence organization, couldn't judge whether this was a large or small number. However, judging from Ma Sang's tone, it sounded like even having this many people enter was quite successful. But a problem arose. What problem? In the first gateway, all 15 passed, but in the second gateway 11 died. If 11 died, that meant only 4 survived. Considering there were still gateways remaining, the probability of failure had become extremely high. He seemed to know why Ma Sang revealed his identity. Could it be? That's right. It's to ask for your help, Mach Jangan. At his words, Mach Jangan shut his mouth. It was because he was at a loss for how to react. Who would have imagined a situation where a member of the Righteous Alliance's shadow organization, Silent Strides, would reveal their identity and ask him for help? I think it's hard for you to accept, but there was no other way. Based on the experience and information from past failed infiltrations, we only sent personnel capable of fighting against others with external techniques even without internal energy. But even we didn't know this situation would happen. He seemed to know. That monster, the wolf-shaped creature that made pig-like cries.